It's fall, which is also benefits season. Here are 4 things you should keep in mind during open enrollment. Hi, my name is Eric Blattner. I'm with Divvy Wealth Management, and today I am joined by one of our partners and co-founders, Kirby DeMoss. Kirby, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Of course. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, I just want to remind folks that if you'd like to follow along with our thoughts, observations on the market, things along these lines, perhaps benefits, open enrollment season, a wide range of different topics, the best way to do that is to go on over to our website, divvywealth.com. That's DIVVI wealth.com. And you can sign up for our blog there. You'll receive typically the weekly insights and email into your inbox, or you can go over to YouTube and search for @DivvyWealthManagement and subscribe to our channel there if you prefer to watch. So with that out of the way, let's turn our attention to benefits and specifically open enrollment season. So Kirby, you just wrote a few thoughts for the blog that I just mentioned that should be in our subscribers' email inbox here very shortly. And it's obviously a time of year where a lot of employees, their attention turns to that health package, that big PDF that you mentioned in the article that you wrote. And, before there was Divvy Wealth, we were all living in this environment in corporate America. And so you have a lot of firsthand experience in going through this process and what it means. So why don't we start right there and just talk a little bit about kind of your experiences in the open enrollment season and some of the things that you learned that might be beneficial for those that are watching.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric. And, a couple things, it's always probably open enrollment period. It's always more stressful, I think, than what it has to be. But we're busy people. A lot of our clients that work in corporate America are very busy. You see the deadline coming from a mile away, and still we're usually signing up for those benefits on the last or next to last day and always wondering, did we do the right thing? Did we make the right selections? So really, the purpose of this conversation is just to highlight a couple key areas that we think sometimes get overlooked by clients or by folks that we visit with that we think can be really financially impactful for them. And obviously there's a lot more to everyone's benefits package typically than what we're going to talk about. But again, these are 3 areas that we think are really financially impactful. So the first we'll start out with are the HSA and the FSA, so the health savings plan and the flexible spending plan or account. And what those really allow for is your ability to offset some of your qualified medical expenses in a tax advantaged way. There are differences to those plans, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We don't want to go too far into the weeds. But there are different reasons why you might use each of those. So a couple of the key differences with the flexible spending account, you're credited with the full amount at the beginning of the year. You use it throughout the year for qualified medical expenses. The money that you put in there goes in there pre-tax, and then it comes out tax-free when it's used for those qualified expenses. One of the key considerations here is at the end of the year, that balance goes to 0. So it's a use it or lose it type scenario. But I'll tell you, early in our life, when we had younger kids, this was a wonderful place for us to have some money. We had a lot of routine checkups, things that we knew we were going to be spending some money on regular medical bills. Flexible spending account was really a great advantage for us at that time. You counter that with the health savings account, which is a much different account. And really the biggest difference being, number one, you have to be utilizing a health savings account eligible health insurance plan, right? So it has to be typically a high deductible plan, and it should be outlined in your benefits which ones those are. But with the health savings account, I'll get through this by the end of it. With the HSA, we're going to call it the HSA here on out. Essentially what you're doing is you're putting in money pre-tax, so you get that tax advantage. That money is able to grow. You actually are able to select investments in this account that grows tax deferred or tax free. And then if it's used for qualified medical expenses, it's going to come out tax free. So there are some really, really neat things that you can do with this in terms of saving over time for some medical events down the road, and giving yourself an ability to do that in a tax advantage way that reduces your taxable income, but still helps you build up a nest egg for if you have a need for those medical expenses down the road. So that's a very high level, but
Yeah.
Answer anything else there.
No, that makes sense. And for those of you that are keeping score at home, that's triple tax free or triple tax advantage on the HSA, where pre-tax contributions, in a lot of cases, you get an employer match to a certain degree, and then growth tax deferral, you actually get to invest those dollars in a way that makes sense to you. And then when you withdraw those dollars for qualified medical expenses, it comes out completely tax free. So it truly is one of the most tax efficient plans that investors have access to. And for a lot of families that we work with, that we talk to, especially those that are fortunate to earn enough to be able to essentially pay for any unforeseen medical expenses throughout the year, you can let those HSAs, those contributions grow for many years and compound over the course of 5, 10, maybe even 20 years down the road to retirement, which is really powerful. As you know, one of the things we talk about a lot as investors is that time is your friend. And so the longer that you can leave those dollars invested and growing for you, especially in a tax advantaged way like this, there's really some pretty powerful benefits for those that where it might make sense.
Yeah, and I think, I mentioned earlier, my wife and I started with the FSA originally, but as the kids got older, it made a lot of sense for us to look at a high deductible plan where we had an HSA paired with it. We had less medical bills. We weren't doing all the routine kind of early years checkups that tend to eat away at those accounts. And to your point, it's allowed us to be able to put some money away that can grow over time. And then, if we need it, it's there for us to be able to use for those expenses. So definitely everybody's situation is going to be unique. It's really important to know the details of this, but we think it's really important that everybody's looking into this on our behalf.
There you go. Appreciate that. And so we're talking about long-term, we're talking about investing. It's kind of a natural transition to start to think about 401k and savings. Help us understand some of the considerations that people might want to think about when deciding exactly what to do with some of those dollars that they want to kind of defer from their paycheck today for at some point down the road, retirement in particular.
Yeah, and I'll be at risk of pointing out the obvious, which is it's all our responsibility in today's day and age to help provide ourselves with the retirement that we want. And so saving money through a 401k is a wonderful way to do that. You're able to do it pre-tax. Those dollars are growing tax deferred, and then eventually will be taxed when you take them out in retirement. But the 401k is going to have a lot to do with how you enjoy your lifestyle in retirement. So we'll kind of state the obvious there. The other pieces I think people have done a really good job of understanding is the fact that there are matches oftentimes within their company. And at the very least, you want to make sure you fund up to that match. Now, it's likely that you might want to max out your funding or fund it more. But at the very least, if you can make it work with your day-to-day expenses, that you can put enough money away to get that match, it's free money. And so I think generally speaking, a lot of folks understand that, but we want to make sure we highlight that. One of the pieces that I think is getting overlooked a lot right now, in particular with 401ks, is a lot of 401k plans are now offering a Roth option. Okay. And when you think about the different places that you're going to use for income and retirement, of course, you'll have perhaps Social Security, maybe a pension, but eventually it comes down to your liquid assets. And those assets are going to come in different buckets. There's going to be kind of your tax deferred bucket, which is your 401k, your taxable bucket, which would be just your joint account or your non-tax sheltered account. And then you're going to have tax-free accounts, hopefully, through a Roth or now through a Roth 401k. There are a lot of folks that, because of where their income is at, they're not able to contribute as a family to a Roth. This is one way that they can do that. There are a lot of tax considerations here. It could be that it's actually more favorable for someone to do the deductible 401k or the pre-tax 401k, the more traditional option. But really understanding how those two options work together and figuring out what the right blend is for you of traditional 401k and Roth 401k, I think is really important. And we just find a lot of folks haven't looked into that or made a thoughtful decision on how they're going to work with those pieces.
Sure. No, I think that's a great point. And, trying to forecast tax rates 10, 20 years from now is probably a fool's errand. But, particularly I think for a lot of those younger folks where you would expect career growth to be, a meaningful part of what that career path looks like over the next decade or two. Perhaps you are in some of the earlier earnings years for you, and those tax rates, those income levels are likely to rise over time. And so at the end of the day, I think we would, as investors, as savers, we would prefer to minimize the amount of tax that we pay over the course of our lifetime. And so having some of those thoughts, and tax diversification, I think is a really powerful concept too. I think you touched on that. So those are a couple of really important conversations to have. And now with a few minutes that we have left here, one other piece that I think is certainly important in the work that we do in the day-to-day work in the financial planning world is about risk. And for a lot of employers, this open enrollment season might include the option to participate in some group life and disability. So would you take a minute and kind of share some thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the big thing is these, this area in particular, I think in the benefits plan sometimes gets skipped over, and maybe somebody has life insurance or they feel like they've got the coverage they need. And if so, that's all well and good. The things I would point out about group life in particular, we'll start there through your employers. Oftentimes it is extremely good value relative to what you can get in the open market. And the reasons for that are a couple. Number one, they're underwriting a large group of people versus one individual, so you get better pricing power that way. And then secondly, a lot of times the employer might even be subsidizing the cost. And so what we found is oftentimes there's an opportunity for someone to cover some of their insurance need by using a group policy like this, and can do it very, very affordably. A couple of caveats that you want to think about, importantly, really important ones would be around the portability of the plan. So I think it's important to consider what would happen if you left the firm that you work for. What happens to that plan? And there should be some detail in there, but generally speaking, you're going to lose that subsidy, and you're probably going to lose that favorable treatment of having that larger group that's bringing down that premium, which oftentimes is going to mean your cost is going to go up to more of a market type rate. So we think it's really important to consider this as part of the plan, but also understanding, do I need to have maybe some of my own dedicated insurance outside of my employer as well, and have those two work together. But again, a great benefit and a way to take care of some things that, should something happen to you, will be cared for, whether it's a big mortgage that you might have, whether it's replacing your income for your family, assisting with having some dollars that are available for your kids for their lifestyle, or for eventual education savings, those kinds of things. So
right. So I think to kind of sum up some of those thoughts too, when you're thinking about risk and protecting yourselves, there's a couple different ways to go about it. There's that needs analysis approach, there's the income replacement approach, and there's a variety of different ways to kind of calculate these different things. But I think what we would stress is, understand there's a lot of calculators, or talk to an advisor that you trust to try to understand exactly how much coverage you should have. And then, what can that group life or disability policy do to kind of help supplement and make sure that you're bridging any gaps in your personal plan. So that's helpful. Kirby, any final thoughts that you would share with listeners?
No, other than we know what you're going through. We've been through it. We're here to help. So whether you're a current Divvy client or just somebody who's interested in making the right decisions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, I think my wife and I typically would have to do a date night a couple days before the deadline and figure all these things out. Try not to leave it up to the last minute. Do a little bit of research on some of these things and see if they make sense for you.
Sure. Well, it's an important time of year for sure. So we appreciate the thoughts, appreciate the help. As always, again, if you would like to follow along, best way, again, go over to our website, divvywealth.com, and sign up for our blog there. You can find us all over social media, or you can go over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel at Divvy Wealth Management on YouTube as well. Thanks again for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.